Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we publish world-changing wellness books with a mission to wake the world up to what's possible for healing. And here today to help me with that mission is Kathy Guidi, who is one of our authors of Shamanic Breathwork, The Nature of Change. And before I talk to her a little bit about Shamanic Breathwork, let me just say thank you really quick to Star Wolf. We wouldn't be here without Star. We cannot wait to get this beautiful book into the world. And she has collected a stellar author cast of master teachers who are all over the world, including Kathy, who is joining us from New Zealand, right?
That's right.
Okay. So welcome, Kathy. Kathy is a certified shamanic breathwork facilitator, retreat facilitator, Reiki master, and spiritual mentor who is the co-creator and steward of Birdsong Retreat and Sanctuary in New Zealand, where she organizes and hosts small boutique wellness retreats. I might have to hit you up for that, okay? We need to chat, I think, after COVID is finished, right?
Absolutely.
Tell me about this beautiful chapter that you wrote for this book.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be part of this collection of awesome authors in Star Wolf's book. My chapter is chapter 10, and it's titled Make a Noise, Sounding, Toning, and Emoting to Release Fear, Grief, and Rage. And it's about my journey with breath work over the last 5 years, or it started about 5 years ago. And at an interesting time in my life, in my early 50s, just really tapping into a lot of frustration, stuff going on in my life, and kind of having hit a collision where just anger and rage were just coming to the surface all the time. And couldn't really get a handle on it. And a friend told me to, suggested that I go to a breathwork workshop. So I started to breathe, and that just started to change the trajectory of my life. The information that I was able to tap into very rapidly allowed me to see and get into the sort of the underlying reasons of why all this anger and all this stuff was percolating underneath the surface. So it's my journey, my stories, my journey through that. And 5 years later, having certified now as a breathwork facilitator, how I really love and enjoy helping other people to tap into these emotions.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So because of what you wrote about, I can ask you this question, and I would be so excited to be in this discussion with you a little bit. Over my years of dabbling, dipping my toe in different kinds of modalities and practicing for myself and helping other people with them, there was always this one thing about not only a verbal expression of, let's just say anger for now, because I know that's a common trouble spot for a lot of people, but not only the expression of it, but there was something about, well, you could express, but you can't be too loud about it. You can't be too whatever, like let's fill in the blank there. Oh my gosh, I feel like that's been a lifelong journey. I know you've worked with so many clients with this. Can you help me with a little chat about what that is? Why is there such resistance to that?
I think it's a cultural thing where we're just taught that, you know, these bad emotions or the negative emotions, which really aren't negative at all, they're just part of a spectrum of who we are and what we feel all the time. You know, that there's not a good way to express them. And many of us, myself included, have learned very unproductive ways to express them, whether they're from your family imprinting, your childhood imprinting that you carry into your adult life. And so to get to being an adult and finding out that you do have this anger or you do have rage and you have no idea how to safely communicate them or to even express them, it's quite remarkable, actually, because it is part of the spectrum of what we feel all the time. And so what I really love about shamanic breath work is that anything goes in shamanic breath work. So it's a full body somatic experience. And so you can just follow what your body wants to do. And if it is to make some noise, then you make some noise, and you're held in a safe container to just allow that energy to move out. And a lot of times it's just energy that needs to move. It needs to flow through the body and get out of the body. You don't even always have to even understand why or what the rage is. Or, you know, sometimes you know, sometimes you don't. It's just moving that energy.
So what would you say to somebody who's even dabbled in this and they are in the safe container of the group and they might be going through a breathwork session and you know, there's music and a lot of times it's very loud music, which is part of, I think, what they put in place to help you feel safe. Because if you were to scream or cry or make any loud noise, it would be kind of drowned out by, you know, by the music, which is supposed to help you. But here's my question. What would you say to someone who still can't do it? Who still feels like it's just like won't happen or can't happen? Have you ever come across that? Like, what's the next step?
Yeah, it's baby steps. It's real gentle, real gentle. Because, you know, we're trained to like look at people as they're breathing and seeing if they're, you know, what their body's trying to do. If you know, you can see sometimes where the energy is trying to come out and, you know, you might get tension around the neck. And often I'll just kind of get down next to them and just kind of breathe with them, just follow their breath. And just gently, I might whisper to them like, open your mouth, just even gently, you know, just make a little sound, whether it's just, you know, taking a deep breath in and on an exhale, just sighing something, you know. So it's just starting very small sometimes, because it's a big deal for people to open up their throat chakra, to actually feel that power that's coming out that they carry within them. And so it's just baby steps. And the music, by playing the music loud, it does kind of soften and allow people to maybe find that permission. And, you know, when we talk about that, when we drum everybody in, it's like giving you permission to be here, but giving you permission to be in this safe container, giving you permission to just allow your body to express whatever it needs to today at this point in time. So just being gentle, and sometimes you have to come over and over, you know, and then there'll be a point where you can really open your mouth and let the full expression come.
I want our listeners to know too, that I am speaking to a very skilled master teacher right now. And that's one of the most important things, that when you try something different or new, you have to understand that you need experienced people who do know what to do. So I loved hearing you talk about just now, Kathy, about how you actually look at somebody's body language, you look at the breathing pattern, you look at everything you're observing, you know, you're understanding, because you have a lot of experience, just the gentle nudge or that baby step. I love that. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
Well, I also do sometimes too with my groups, before we even get into the breath work, you know, I talk about what one can expect, you know, what could happen, you know, physical, transpersonal, you know, rebirth, you know, there's all these different things that can happen in a breath work experience. And I always do talk about the throat chakra and making a noise. And sometimes we just do little toning exercises, just it's not even expressing rage, but just making sounds, just making gentle sounds with your voice, because that's often scary for people as well. So there's all different kinds of techniques. You know, we here at Birdsong live on a 10-acre piece of paradise in the bush. And so we have a lot of trees. We also go out and we can like yell into the trees. And that's kind of a fun thing to do sometimes, but you know, again, just connecting with nature, just being supported by these beautiful giant trees around us. It all kind of comes through to help with when you eventually get to the breathwork process.
Yes. Okay. So this is so perfect. You talking about the trees and talking about nature, because honestly, my next question for you was about our book subtitle, which is The Nature of Change. So what I want to know, well, there's, you know, the nature part of that. You just talked about the trees. It's making me happy because I love nature. It's always a channel for me, but really the change part. How important has the idea of change, embracing it, been in your life? How's that shown up?
It's awesome. It's very important. You know, we can go through life change is happening all the time. And so you can go through life and you're making decisions and, you know, things are ticking along. You don't even have to be that fully conscious about them. But I found in later life now where, you know, I'm settled, I am who I am, and I'm still hitting against a couple of things that are being carried with me throughout my 50 years of life. And in order to change, to make effective change, I have to actually be more conscious about it. And so what I like about shamanic breath work is we're bringing intention, we're bringing consciousness to understanding who we are, why we have these patterns, so that we can make effective change. And that's been incredible in these past 5 years, because I'm diving into some deep unconscious operating patternings. And once, if I can keep going and keep trying to pull the layers off, all this other amazing magical stuff is starting to happen in life. And that's how the universe does work. It's like if you do your own personal work, you shed these layers, then it allows for room for other amazing things to come in and to follow your sacred yes.
Yes, doesn't it? You're talking about a practice of awareness. And I believe the authors in this book, including yourself, are at other level practice. You have made a lifetime's worth out of this practice, and you have taken it to other levels, which is why so many of you talk about the magic. Use the M word, right? Because it feels magical, but awareness is everything to me. Awareness is the piece that makes everything you're saying possible. And, you know, you're describing that in this way. Do you remember a time where you were just waking up?
Yeah.
Or one or two times, you know, just maybe a few, right?
Yeah. And, you know, connecting to your intuition, just connecting into something greater than you, where you can start to just go, okay, well, what is that little voice? What's that voice telling me? And do I really want to follow that voice? You know, a lot of times it's easy to ignore. And I've been great at ignoring certain things for a long time in my life that are quite up for me right now to look at. So it's important to have that awareness and then to say to yourself, okay, well, I want to have some change. And what does that mean? It's hard to make big changes in one's life. You need a support system often. And sometimes you just have to get out of your like regular life and make a radical change in order to affect something big. And I've been at different jumping points throughout my whole life. I mean, I come from the States and I'm now living in New Zealand. And that was a huge journey to follow something that didn't make any rational sense about why I wanted to leave the States and do something different. So there have been many jumping points throughout life.
You talked a minute ago about intuition, and I wanted to just jump back there for a second, because I know that that journey of arriving to a place where I could even talk about what that is was a journey, first of all. But I really rely on that connection now for everything. And I wondered what would you want to share with listeners about intuition, especially if they're not even really sure they have it, which of course you all have it.
To just trust. I mean, we all have an inner voice. Sometimes it's hard to determine what that inner voice is offering us, because we talk about like the ego mind. The ego mind wants to keep you safe, wants to keep you just ticking along. So when you get all that, like, no, you shouldn't do this. No, you can't do that. No, you're not good enough. That's more the ego mind kind of trying to keep you safe. But then there's that other voice. It's like, wow, I can be anything I want to be. I really can go after that job. I really want to like fly around the world and go do this. So that's usually the higher self trying to come through and say, yes, everything is possible. You can have whatever you want. It is possible, but you've got to listen and you've got to take action, you know, and so again, you got to be gentle with that. You have to learn to figure out which voice is communicating to you.
Definitely. Okay, so I've heard a lot of the authors talk about that ego voice, and a lot of the shamanic breathwork authors and teachers are talking about something called a shamanic death and or rebirth. And while I've asked this question a couple of times, even selfishly, because I want to figure out more about what you guys are talking about with that, you know, I want to ask it again to you because you use the term ego. And so they were bringing the term ego into this question too. What is this shamanic death you all talk about?
It's basically when you have a pattern, or to me, like when you have a pattern of behavior or something, or some way that you act in the world that really isn't serving you or anyone else, and it needs to die, you know. So that's what we'd say, give a good death to. We need to really break the code, break that hold on you so that you can make the change. So we call that a death and rebirth. It's experience. So what I really like about the breath work versus any modality I've ever done, you know, in decades, is that it bypasses the ego mind. So when you do this breath work technique, you can go into non-ordinary states of reality where you're really getting underneath the ego mind, your conscious mind, into the unconscious, so that you can tap in to your intuition or your higher self and bring information through. And often when you're bringing that information through, it means something about you that who you were needs to die. So we call that giving that a good shamanic death, so that a new way of being can come through. And that's your rebirth. And sometimes in a breath work, you actually experience like an actual death. And then this sort of, you know, most of us have the archetype of the phoenix rising. You'll be in your breath work and you'll feel, you know, like these wings coming out of you, or whatever the feeling needs to be. And it's just like, oh yeah, I am coming back into a higher version of myself. And that feels good.
Yes, I love listening to you talk about this. And I've loved hearing all of the unique voices in this project really try to describe something that's very difficult to describe, I realize. So thank you for trying. I know it needs to be experienced. And I hope that at a minimum, we help people be very curious with this book, right? You all are going to read Kathy's story and all of the authors' stories, but then they're taking that a step further, and they're going to teach you a practical piece of their medicine so that you can dip your toe in a little bit and have an experience. And really, that's where it's at. You've heard Kathy talk about the intuition, that higher power, that higher voice, that higher vibration place where all of that beautiful stuff can come through, and that magical feeling can come through. I know just enough to be dangerous, right? To say that is very real and profound. And if you have been stuck in your life and feeling like something needs to change, and you've tried a million things and you just haven't found the thing yet, I think this is going to be an interesting path to take, right? Star says, and you have to be ready. What do you think she means by that?
Well, part of you needs to want something to shift. You know, I mean, you can come and do a breathwork session, and if you're just something always happens. There's no question. If you do the technique, something is going to happen to you. Whether the depth of what might happen for you might be just where you are at within yourself, of what you're ready to see. And what we say in breathwork too is like, just trust whatever's coming up for you today is what you can handle and what you can, you're ready to see. So some people, you know, we have lots of stuff in our past, and sometimes we don't want to look at that, and that's okay. But if you come and breathe, or you come and work with someone regularly, it's like an excavation. It's just peeling off different layers. And you're often surprised at what and how things start to surface. Yeah.
I love the word excavation. I always tell people to take their flashlight so that they can look into the crevices and find all the surprises, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So what do you have going on right now in your world with what you're doing in your business and all that good stuff?
Well, it's a busy time of year for us. We're coming at the end of summer and going into autumn. So we've got quite a few retreats coming up. I facilitate and run women's weekend retreats. So we've got one coming up in April. We work with different people around the country. I mean, I'm really big on under the umbrella of shamanism and shamanic practices. I've got a woman that's coming down who does sacred crafting, and she's going to run a 4-day make your own medicine drum workshop. And we do some work with the medicine wheel. And I've got a few shamanic breathwork workshops coming up. So we're always busy around here. And then being on a 10-acre property, we grow a lot of food, and we've got a lot of fruit trees. And so we're coming into harvest season. So it's full time right now.
Nice. Yeah. Full-time hard work, huh? In the fields. Oh my goodness. Okay. So let's finish up with this. I think that the author experts, the teachers that I dabble with, we like to talk about ourselves more as guides or facilitators on this journey. Like, we don't fix people. We guide them to that higher voice that we've been talking about in this interview. So, and we do that because we want them to feel empowered to connect with that own place inside them, right? So what's the last thing you want to say today to our listeners to help them feel empowered?
You have all the answers you need. They're all within you. You have your own innate wisdom to tell you and show you what you need to know. And you just have to trust. And you're right, like, all we're doing and all I feel like I'm doing is just holding a container and just being present to what is for another person. And we can do it, and you can do it. Every person has the capacity to do this work and to make themselves, to undergo healing and to evolve.
Kathy, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here to share it with everyone today.
Thank you, Laura. What a privilege to have a very private session with you here today.
Well, we're excited, you guys, because coming up on March 21st, we're going to have our live stream book launch party where all of the Shamanic Breathwork authors are going to be there to share some of their wisdom like Kathy did today. So join us at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Brave Healer Productions Facebook page. I have you linked up down below for that. And if something in our conversation today, something Kathy said really kind of sparked you up, lit your fire a little bit, you want to explore a little further, well, I have her website hooked up down below and her information. So go ahead and explore. All of our authors are generously there to connect with you and answer questions and help you with the support, especially as it relates to what they're doing with shamanic breathwork and facilitating that healing journey. So I appreciate all of our authors for that. And of course, if you happen to be listening to this after March 21st, well, that means our book is on Amazon already. So you should hop over there and grab your copy. And lastly, today, everyone, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it's time to be brave. See you next time, everyone. Thanks, Kathy.
Bye-bye.